Craving something healthier? They'll love Puree Proven Nutrition.
Hey y'all. Girl, how y'all doing today? I came to give y'all a conspiracy lie. Hey Harley, hey Sharika, hey Kim, hey Watana, Taya, Wataya. Ooh girl, I really messed up your name. Hey y'all, how y'all doing? How y'all feeling? Okay. I really yes, and hey Miss Magnificent. Hey Gilbert, hey Prada, YouTube cameras. I botched the fuck out your name, girl. You been waiting? Well, hi, Dee. Appreciate you coming over. Now, look, I have been going down the rabbit hole. Okay, hold on. Girl, it's hot. It's hot. Okay, it is hot in Florida. Warn me if you get yourself worked up today, girl. I may not get worked up for this topic. For this topic, I wanted to go down the rabbit hole with y'all. So let me go ahead on and pull it up. Well, let me let y'all know why I did this live and what made me come live. Hey, Miss Sheila E. Nice to see you, boo. Hey, Principal. A pleasure. Nice to see you. What made me want to do this live? I was over there, YouTube shorts, going down the rabbit hole over there on that side of YouTube, and I started getting a lot of recommend videos and YouTube shorts about the whole Disney cartoons and stuff. I was like, oh, okay. Well, let me explore this with y'all and see how y'all like it. Hold on, because I feel like it is. Okay, let me know if y'all could hear me. Huh? My computer wasn't to froze on me now. Stupid ass shit. No, this actually is not about Enoch. But let me know if y'all can hear me though. Because I need to know if y'all can hear a bitch loud and clear before we get into it. Okay, because this acting stupid with me and stuff. So give me a moment so I can pull up what I want y'all to see.
The topic today, the story of Peter Pan. And trust me when I say the whole way through, because not only are we going to discuss the story, which in and of itself is pretty dark, we're also going to shed some light on these surprisingly creepy back, because when you know his backstory and his inspiration for writing the Peter Pan original conception was different than the one we know from Disney. He was first mentioned in a short story in a book by J.M. Barrie called The Little White Bird, where he's described as a magical boy who escaped from as a baby and ever since flies around with fairies. Unlike a newborn baby. It's important to note this is not a prequel to the older Peter Pan story. The book specifically says there's not the slightest chance of his ever having a birthday, so he stays a baby forever. But this character is what inspired Barrie's creation of the older Peter Pan, so there are some connections between the backstories. The next piece of work to include Peter Pan was a play by J.M. Barrie called Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. The popularity of the play is what led Barrie to write the book Peter and Wendy, which is basically the same story as the play, but in book format. And that is what we are diving into today. But before we get started, let's first go over the button so we can reach our goal of 5,000 likes and enjoy. The story follows Wendy, Michael, and John Darling, 3 kids who live in London. While their parents are away at a party, they're visited by a magic boy who never ages them how to fly and takes them to the island of Neverland, where his clan of Lost Boys live, as well as his enemy, Captain Hook. At first, the Darling kids are having a pretty good time, but after being harassed by the mermaids and interrogated by Indians, they start to get homesick and are ready to leave. On their way out, they're captured by Captain Hook, who plans on making them walk the plank and blowing up Peter's hideout with a time bomb. Thanks to Tinkerbell's intervention, Peter survives the explosion and defeats Captain Hook in a duel, saving the Lost Boys from his wrath. Peter commandeers the pirate ship, uses some of Tinkerbell's fairy dust to give it some magic and make it fly, and then drops off the Darlings back at their house in London. There's a few details I left out of that summary, but don't you worry, because we're going to touch on them in just a bit, because the book is actually pretty similar to the movie. Only the book includes a few more details that make Peter Pan's leadership over the Lost Boys seem a little more evil. The story starts by telling us about Wendy Darling's childhood and how she came to learn that it wouldn't last forever. Her mother would often tell bedtime stories to her and her brothers, Michael and John, and the boy who never ages would secretly eavesdrop
Can you hear me? Girl, this computer ain't trying to let me be great today. Okay. So bomb, that is the plan. Hey, Miss Gwen. Hey, it's me, Felicia. Hey, Bella's World, Latasha. Hey, y'all. That is the plan. Now, you notice right here. We gonna go deeper into that. It's go deeper, girl. It goes a little deeper when he goes and he explains this. Okay, it's a few others that I gotta pull up too that we're gonna be talking about. Hey, Nika. You know, just certain things that you don't pay attention to when you be watching it. Now, some of y'all may have got this weird feeling about Peter Pan, right? Especially since the boys that is with Peter are called the Lost Boys. And I always wonder as a child, like, why what they call the Lost Boys? You know what I'm saying? This is supposed to be Neverland. And they supposed to be boys that are part of Peter and they never supposed to grow up. Same with Peter Pan as we seen from the Disney. I always wondered why the hell they were called the Lost Boys. Like, was they stolen? Did they get lost there? Like, how the fuck they became the Lost Boys any fucking ways? And you see how Peter gets off this senator girl, I'm about to say the wrong damn, get off this evil ass look. Senator girl, I can't even get this tongue right today. He gives off an evil look right here. You see where you see Peter is giving off that evil look that he has. I always felt like something about Peter was not right neither. I always felt like wasn't that right about Peter and his ways and how he do things, especially when he convinced the 3 children. Girl, I can't get the word out right now. Y'all gonna have to catch me on another day. I can't get it out. But how he gives off this evil vibe to him, and how he was able to, trick the three little kids to leaving with him and going to this world called Neverland. Even though them getting to Neverland, they had to go through a whole bunch of bullshit just to get there. But the story, the book that was told of Peter Pan, it's a little different. So we finna deep dive into Peter Pan, and then I'm gonna go to Pinocchio, and those are the two we gonna focus on for today.
Eavesdrop on those stories every night. On one random evening, Peter is spotted sneaking through the window of the nursery, and the Darling's dog Nana scares him away, but latches onto his shadow with her teeth. Mrs. Darling folds up the shadow and puts it in a drawer, and a week later, Peter and Tinkerbell come back to the house to retrieve it. They wake up Wendy, who reattaches the shadow to its owner, and during the conversation that follows, Peter learns that Wendy knows lots of bedtime stories, and would therefore make a great mother to his gang of lost boys. He offers to bring her to Neverland, and she accepts, and she takes her two brothers with her. The children head for the second star to the right and have a magical flight to Neverland and have a few interesting encounters on the way. They're flying for quite a long time, and on this journey they learn that Peter Pan has horrible memory. Beyond horrible, honestly. There's points of their flight where he'll veer off for a while, and when he encounters the Darling kids again, they have to keep reintroducing themselves. I guess that's a result of his childlike innocence or whatever, but Wendy found it pretty annoying. When they finally arrive at the island, Wendy is shot down by an arrow from the Lost Boys thanks to Tinkerbell telling them that Peter Pan ordered it. And then the Lost Boys build a house for her to recover in and call it a Wendy house, a term that's still used to this day. While she's recovering, her brothers Michael and John make themselves at home with the Lost Boys and start adopting their ways of living. Peter shows Wendy around his underground camp, and she immediately takes on the role of mother figure. The Darling kids go on several adventures and spend a lot of time with Peter, and over that unknown amount of time, they learn a few things about him that are a little scary. For example, he says that all the Lost Boys are kids who lost their parents in a public park in London called Kensington Gardens. So I imagine he's approaching these kids the same way he approached the Darlings, just encouraging them to go to his magical island where there's no rules and kids can do whatever they want. But he's doing it to kids who wander away from their parents in a public park, so it kind of sounds like he's a child predator. We also learn that he kills the Lost Boys to thin the herd, or when they get too old. He periodically alters their bodies so they can fit through the tree holes that lead to their hideout. Don't even want to know what that means. And he'll sometimes feed them pretend food because he can't tell the difference between real and make-believe. It turns out that a magical child with the memory of a goldfish, not the best at raising children. The first really dangerous mission that Peter takes the Darlings on happens at Mermaid's Lagoon. Similar to the movie, the mermaids in the book were rude to Wendy and the entire Lost Boy gang. Also similar to the movie, this is when Hook's pirate ship comes out of the nearby fog. It turns out that Hook's men had kidnapped the chief's daughter and planned on getting her to reveal the location of Peter Pan's hideout, but she refused. So their new plan was to tie her up and leave her on a rock in the middle of the ocean at low tide, so when the tide rose, she would drown. But Peter saves her by sneaking up to the ship and impersonating the voice of Captain Hook, who apparently wasn't on board at the time, and just ordering the pirates to let her go. Coincidentally, the real Captain Hook climbs on board the ship just a few moments after Tiger Lily has jumped off, and this is when Peter Pan reveals himself and a short battle ensues. A cool detail about Hook I didn't
Look at y'all. Ain't nobody at Giggle Bunny. Look, y'all already know. Some of y'all already know. I wouldn't say he like Peter Piper, but who knows?
I didn't know about. He doesn't have anyone standing guard on his ship because the souls of the people he's killed protect it for a mile in every direction. I'm sure there's other responsibilities the souls don't take care of, like pulling up the anchor and mast maintenance, but they got the standing guard thing covered. Captain Hook ends up injuring Peter, who winds up stranded on the same rock that Tiger Lily was supposed to be on unable to fly. He makes peace with his incoming death, but luckily a nearby bird volunteers her nest for him to use as a boat to sail back on. He makes it back to his camp, everyone regards him as a hero, and to pay him back for saving Tiger Lily's life, the Indians agree to stand guard over his hideout. Wendy starts to fall in love with Peter at this point, but when she asks him what he thinks of her, he says that she's his mother and he is her loyal son. That's a whole nother level of friend zone, but it reminds Wendy of her own parents back in London, who must be worried sick about them at this point, as it's been a few days since they left. She decides it's time for her and her brothers to fly back home, and even invites the Lost Boys to come along with, to be raised by their parents. Everyone is down for the idea except for Peter, who decides to take a nap when the Darlings and Lost Boys fly out. The problem is they encounter some pirates on their way and are taken captive on the Jolly Roger. Peter wakes up from his nap sometime later, and Tinkerbell tells him about the danger the Darlings and Lost Boys got into. He heads out to the Jolly Roger, and on the way encounters the ticking crocodile that Hook is so afraid of. Being that Peter's a master of impersonations, he copies the ticking sound so that nearby animals and pirates will avoid him. When he boards the Jolly Roger, he sneaks into the cabin the kids are being held captive in and sets them free. And then a battle between the Lost Boys and pirates breaks out. It's an intense fight, but the Lost Boys come out on top, killing all but 2 of the pirates, and Peter kills Captain Hook by kicking him into the jaws of the crocodile. He then takes over the ship and sails back to London with the Darlings to be reunited with their parents. Actually, Peter wasn't totally willing to let the Darlings go. He flew ahead of the ship so he could put bars on their bedroom windows so they would think their parents didn't want them to come back. But when he got to the house, he saw how upset Mr. and Mrs. Darling were and decided against it. The story ends in kind of a weird way. The kids and their parents reunite, the Lost Boys are adopted by the Darlings and raised to adulthood, and while Peter refuses to grow up, he makes a deal with Wendy that he'll bring her back to Neverland for a week every spring so she can help him with spring cleaning. The problem is, Peter has no real conception of time. So after only a few years of Wendy coming to visit him, he forgot about her completely for 25 years. When he visits her as an adult, she also learns he's forgotten all about Tinkerbell, Captain Hook, and the Lost Boys. He makes a new deal with Wendy that her daughter Jane will visit him once a year, and when Jane eventually grows older and has her daughter Margaret, they make the same deal. And that is how the story ends. But we're not done just yet, because there's a few things I think you should know about the author James Matthew Barrie and his weird fascination with boyhood. It's believed that his obsession started in 1867. When James was just 6 years old, his brother David was killed just 2 days before turning 14.
What's crazy is a lot of these authors that did these stories and rewrote these, well, not rewrote, but Disney rewrote these stories, because when you go down a rabbit hole with all of them, it's a few of them that we knew was weird anyways, that didn't make any sense. Like, I always enjoyed Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, but a lot of those women were literally assaulted. They were literally being kissed without their consent because of a spell they was put on, and we were told it's okay because they was under a spell and they needed true love's first kiss to break the spell. But really, if you look at it, it's like, well, to be honest, he kissing her and consenting and stuff. And I think it's Snow White and Sleeping Beauty from the stories originally wrote without Disney adopting them. Girl, they stories are horrible, bitch. Cinderella's story with her sisters is horrible as hell too. Girl, they got some real fucked up evil shit behind a lot of these a lot of them Disney cartoons. But I'm gonna let y'all, I ain't gonna tell y'all it because I don't want to spoil it. So I'm gonna let him tell y'all the story. Because he just gave y'all the Disney rundown of the story. Because y'all know we done seen Disney. Y'all know that y'all children done seen Peter Pan. Everybody knows Peter Pan, bitch. Everybody. Okay? But I'm going to let him tell you the original story before Disney decided to take over, child.
when he was knocked down by a fellow ice skater and cracked his head on the ice. The word is that David was their mother's favorite out of her 8 living children, and the small amount of comfort that she found in his death would be that he would stay an innocent young boy forever. And this is how the obsession with innocence and boyhood became anchored in James's psyche. It almost sounds like the start of some creepypasta cartoon conspiracy, but I promise this actually happened. Now fast forward 30 years to 1898. While chilling out in the one and only Kensington Gardens, James met George and John Davies, a 4 and 5-year-old that were walking around with their nurse. He was real polite, befriended their parents, and met their 3 other sons, Peter, Michael, and Nico. He was so close with their family, they started calling him Uncle Jim. On the surface, it might not look like there's anything wrong with his relationship with the family, but in the book I mentioned earlier, James included a passage about a grown man befriending a kid named David. Weirdly close to the name Davies, huh? And then lies to David's parents about having his own dead son to create empathy and bond with them. I'm not saying that's what he did to the Davies parents, but what I am saying is he's coming a little too close to a Lena Dunham level confession. And it gets even weirder. Some researchers dug up a letter that James wrote to Michael Davies for his birthday, and it's thought that Michael was his favorite of the Davies children. The letter reads as follows: I wish I could be with you and your candles. You can look on me as one of your candles, the one that burns badly, the greasy one that is bent in the middle. But still, hurry, I am Michael's candle. What? I wish I could see you putting on the Redskins' clothes for the first time. Dear Michael, I am very fond of you, but don't tell anybody. Totally appropriate to say to an 8-year-old, right? He refers to himself as a greasy candle that's bent in the middle, and I don't even want to know what that's a metaphor for. Makes a kind of racist comment about Native Americans. Admittedly, the times were different back then, but, you know, he still said it, and then said he wanted to watch the child change into the Native American costume, which is questionable at best. And then at the very end, he says, I'm very fond of you, but don't tell anyone. I'm going to go ahead and say this is not normal behavior, even for the early 1900s. But if you thought it couldn't get worse, it does. Both Davies' parents died of natural causes when their kids were still young. But for some reason, I think maybe because he lived so close to them and because they had no reason not to trust them at this point, Uncle Jim was the one responsible for transcribing the parents' will and sending it to the boy's grandma. And when she received it, instead of the will saying the children should go to Jenny, it said they should go to Jimmy. So he adopted them after their parents died and raised them to adulthood. The nature of the relationship is questionable. There's some people who firmly believe that J.M. Barrie was truly scarred from his childhood and had only a platonic obsession with boyhood and innocence. Others are a little more suspicious and downright accusational. I can't pretend to know the truth, but I won't deny there were some major red flags popping up as I researched this guy's life. It should be mentioned, though, that despite that scandal, Barrie did commit one supremely good deed before he died in 1937. He left the copyright to all of his Peter Pan works to a children's hospital in London, which still greatly benefits from having the rights to this day. And that is the story of J.M. Barrie and the boy who wouldn't grow up, Peter Pan. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. It's one of my favorites that I've done so far. If you could hit that like button so we can reach our goal of 5,000.
Okay, now that one is a different story. I just heard that one with y'all. That's not the other story that he told about Peter Pan. Now what I do find interesting that this man wrote his stories about how he was fixated on little boys and stuff, and then when he died, he donated all his Peter Pan books to Children's Hospital. I think that's just some fucked up ass shit, because y'all just, it's just amazing that they ignore these men doing bullshit. And a lot of people today say, well, that's how it was in their days. That's what it was in those days. Just because that's what it was in those days doesn't make it okay. It still don't make it okay at all that they got away with being able to fantasize about little kids and shit, whether they were girls or boys. That's some fucked up ass, twisted minded ass shit. And then when he dies, he gives his Peter Pan books, considering his history of being, from what he just told of this author. It also was said the other author who were who wrote Pinocchio. Oh, I gotta pull up Pinocchio, my bad. Hold on. Who wrote Pinocchio hated children. And that's why Pinocchio's story was the way that it was. Now, I never knew this story of this man here. Now, the one I wanted y'all to hear, he didn't tell it on that one. But I'm going to tell y'all what I wanted y'all to hear. That was the not the one of the lost boy, but he did the, hold on. He did a few versions of Peter Pan. That's true. Hey, Essence. He did a few versions of Peter Pan, which is true. But it's one story that's like disturbing. One story that's disturbing. He tells it on his other one, but I thought that was the video right there where he tells that other story of Peter Pan that he did. The one I did, went down the rabbit hole on, where Peter and his sorry y'all, I'm trying to do my damn weed, bitch, cause you know you gotta smoke talking about this type of shit here. Okay, and that's the first version of Peter Pan. That was the first one he wrote. But he wrote a few others of Peter Pan, but it was the one we know so far that I know, which is the one we just saw. But the other one I saw, which I need to find, of the Peter Pan story, was the Lost Boys were because a lot of y'all say he gives out Peter Piper. He does. His character does give those vibes, to be honest with you. It's like they made him into whatever, but y'all fail to realize with Peter Piper, he was a grown, older looking man. Like he was in his mid-40s and stuff. Where when it came to Peter looked like he can go from the ages of 15 to about 19 years old. The way that Peter gave me like he was 19 and not necessarily a kid, but he did give me like he was 19, adult, on that type of level, and he just was learning the kids. He did give me that, but you know, his character never really gave me childlike like that. It gave off he needed to do, because you know, with Disney, everything is like a metaphor, right? And you gotta look beyond what you're looking at, because most shit be metaphors and references and shit like that. Hey, the boy, be metaphor. Hey, Voodoo Baidu. It be metaphors and stuff like that. Okay, Voodoo Boo, appreciate you being here. Now, I do feel like they do resemble, or they do give off the same type of characteristics when it comes to, bitch, I said that word so wrong. Characteristics, girl. Girl, listen. I'm so tongue-tied today. Probably when I gotta do this bullshit. But anyways, that's not important. They do give off the same, hey, Dr. Sophie. But I feel like Peter Pan and Peter Piper are different entities, but the same, if you get what I'm saying. Like they like different entities, but they have the same type of personality and evilness to them, right? Because both of them is obsessed. Well, Peter Piper is obsessed with children, whether they were boys or girls. Because remember, with Peter Piper, he was not a human being, okay? Peter Piper, that's what I'm finna get into. RNY, come on with it, girl. You did like me. Listen, Erica, girl, that's just, girl, it tired me out there. It tired me out there, girl. Okay, it tired me out. Oh, but that's what I'm finna get into. Wow, that's what I'm finna get into, girl. It's so intriguing when you go down the rabbit hole on a lot of your Disney childhood cartoons and movies and shit, and then because something wasn't right about those Disney shows, because you always question why every time somebody in the Disney character they gotta die. Why they gotta die all the time? Okay, I know. Oh, not just birth, RNY, not just birth. But hold on, because you're going too far. Now, the other story that the author had did where was Peter was taking himself. I don't know how Peter ended up being taken, but he was taken too. And Peter ended up becoming the boy that never wanted to grow up, and he ended up in Neverland with Tinkerbell. Now, in this story, Peter learned the boys and Wendy with him was all part of his fucked up ass plan. The lost boys are the children that went missing that Peter lured out of their homes like he did Jane and her two brothers. They were no different. Well, the only difference was that was a girl. That was a girl. So he pretty much is the same. Because, I thought he only did because they called the Lost Boys. So there really was no girls there because they were called the Lost Boys. So all of these were boys. Peter only cared about the boys. And because Peter never wanted to grow up and Peter never wanted anybody else that was there to grow up with him, those were the Lost Boys that he kidnapped and took with him. Now, if you looked into the Disney movie, from when they showed it and they had played it, you can see some of Peter's evil ways when it came down to the Lost Boys. Y'all remember that one part of the scene where he threatened the Lost Boys, and I think it had something to do with Wendy or something, where they let her, because they listened to, he threatened the Lost Boys because they listened to Tinkerbell, because Tinkerbell told them to shoot her out the sky because she was a danger to Peter, so they listened to Tinkerbell in the Disney version. Heckle that shit. They listen to Tinkerbell because she didn't like Wendy. And keep in mind, Tinkerbell is an evil ass bitch. I don't know if y'all ain't paid attention. I always thought Tinkerbell, even though she became the face of Disney and still the face of Disney and one of their main characters like Mickey Mouse, Tinkerbell became the next. She's the one that's the symbol of that magic shit too, with the wand and the fairy shit. The logo that Disney love using when it comes to Tinkerbell. But Tinkerbell was the evil ass bitch. She tried to get Wendy killed so many times in the Disney version. Y'all don't remember for what happened with the mermaids? Y'all don't remember what she did when she told the Lost Boys to shoot the girl down so that she could possibly fall and kill herself? Like, Tinkerbell was after Wendy. Tinkerbell was trying to get Wendy, and I don't know, she ain't, I ain't see the adult version of when Jane grew the fuck up on Disney. Now, the original story, the other one that the man did, the Lost Boys couldn't grow up. It is said that Captain Hook was also one of the Lost Boys who ended up growing up. Captain Hook also was not good, but he kind of portrayed a little bit as being good because the souls that was on his boat, the pirates that was on his boats, were because of the Lost Boys that he saved. And also some of the people that he killed, some of the men that he killed of him being a pirate. That Captain Hook was one of the Lost Boys who wanted to grow up and ended up growing up, but he couldn't never leave Neverland. And he grew up, and that's why him and Peter does not like each other. It's because Captain Hook actually was one of the Lost Boys. That is why him and Peter does not get along. And if any of the Lost Boys was to try to leave or anything, Peter will go out there and he will murder them. He will literally take their lives from them. If they tell him that he want to grow up, like in the Disney version, it showed where Peter was okay with the Lost Boys wanting to go with Wendy and her brothers them and they go live with her family. They showed where Peter was kind of okay with it a little bit. But in the other version of the story, if you told Peter you wanted to grow the fuck up, Peter took you out somewhere and you were never found again. Also in the story, the lost boys were all the boys that he lured out of their homes. Now, why I say some of them were, at birth he was taking them. I don't believe he was doing it only at birth, because look how he did Wendy. Yes, he did. He woke up in the NK Archer. Oh yes, Peter P, where Peter is spanking Tinkerbell. It's some sinister ass shit. It's just, you begin to question some of the things with it, because I felt so bad for the Lost Boys. But I always wondered as a kid, why the fuck was they called the Lost Boys? As a kid, you don't never question it, because you're in love with Tinkerbell, and she able to do that witchery on us, and people don't go to questioning. But bitch, why was that called the Lost Boys? They were called the Lost Boys because they were the Lost Boys that were being kidnapped in London by Peter, that went to live with him in Neverland. And if any of those kids wanted to tell him that they wanted to grow up, Peter will get rid of them, and they would never be seen again. And when he have to do that, like, which I believe he did, he got rid of one of the Lost Boys, which is why he went out searching and ended up bumping into Wendy and her two brothers to add on to his clan, because he already done took some of them out, but Disney just didn't put it in there. But I believe that's why he and his ass really went searching for more kids to take. It's because he already done got rid of the other kids that was in the Lost Boys, because the Lost Boys were very terrified, even in the Disney version, of Peter Pan. They were terrified of him. So Peter never gave off to me that he was a savior. He always gave me creepy vibes, because it's like, well, why is this man boy? He was basically like a man boy. Why the fuck he was a man in a boy's body? Like, why the fuck is he luring these kids out of their damn homes to go be with him? He's a freaking complete stranger. Okay, it's like the dangers they let it be known too. Like, he is a stranger, and you don't know what your children going through, who they talking to, and by how parents didn't pay no attention. That's how Peter was able to get her and a lot of other kids. But it's real messed up, because the Lost Boys are really children that were being taken from their home by Peter to go live in Neverland with him to never grow up. And he forces them to stay there. If they do not stay there, girl, they gone. And when I say gone, he literally makes sure you will never ever see your child, which is some selfish shit. Cause even with them telling him he don't want to, they don't want to grow up, instead of him letting them go back and be with their parents, he takes their lives. And I believe he does it when they tell him they want to grow up in their form of being a child, not when they get older. Which is why it seems like Captain Hook seems to know Peter a lot more too, when you pay attention to the story at hand. Neverland gave off the illusion that it's a place to live forever. Child, please. You got crocodiles following you and shit, trying to eat you, bitch. You got motherfucking mermaids trying to kill you. Then they ain't know nothing about the Lost Boys. And then they had this whole thing with the Indians and stuff. Girl, who the hell wanted to go live with Peter Pan in fucking Neverland? Them fellas live in Neverland, right next to Peter Pan. Nobody wants to grow old. Those fellas live in Neverland. They'll never understand what it's like to be in love. Okay. Don't do Michael Jackson now. Don't do Michael Jackson. RNY. His Neverland was better and different. Okay? It was for protection for what he went through. We will not do no slandering of Michael Jackson. Y'all, the Pinocchio story is where it's gonna get real crazy. Hold on.
Pinocchio. It reminds me of a book that would be written by Tom Bombadil. Some of you might not be surprised to hear that, because honestly, Disney's Pinocchio is a pretty weird movie. Like, why does this cat wear clothes and walk on hind legs while Figaro is a normal kitten? Seems that we have another Goofy vs. Pluto situation on our hands. But on top of being weird as butts, it has an incredibly messed up ending, possibly the most depressing we've read. We're gonna get all into that book in just a second. First, I want to recap the Disney movie so it's fresh in your head. Don't forget that if you want to support the channel and series, to smash that like button. It's been a really long time since we've hit our goal of 5,000 likes, so if you guys can somehow manage to reach it by this weekend, I'm gonna do an extra episode of Messed Up Origins next week. My hopes are high. Don't let me down, Solo fam. I need this. The movie opens with an Italian woodcarver named Geppetto finishing up his new marionette and naming him Pinocchio. That night he wishes upon a star for the puppet to become a real boy, and the blue fairy grants his wish. The fairy tells Pinocchio that if he proves himself brave, truthful, and unselfish, he'll become a real human boy, and she assigns Jiminy Cricket to be his conscience. Geppetto is thrilled to find that Pinocchio's come to life, and the very next day sends him to school. Only Pinocchio gets distracted by a scumbag fox and cat who convince him to join Stromboli's puppet show for an easy path to fame and fortune. Even though he's a hit with the crowd, Pinocchio doesn't get any of the puppet show's revenue himself, and when he tries to go home, Stromboli locks him in a birdcage and their wagon takes off. The Blue Fairy comes to Pinocchio that night, and after making him and Jiminy promise to not make any more mistakes, she sets him free. Only he finds himself getting swindled once again into going to Pleasure Island with a group of misfit boys. It's on this island that young, stupid boys are encouraged to act on every impulse and desire they have. But after less than a day of degenerate behavior, the boys start transforming into donkeys and are sold to the salt mines as slaves. Pretty freaky. Pinocchio and Jiminy escape the island and learn that Geppetto was eaten alive by a giant whale named Monstro while searching for the missing puppet. Pinocchio takes on the responsibility of saving Geppetto himself, and despite the risk involved, he pulls it off successfully. Well, mostly successfully. He actually dies in the process, but because he acted so bravely and selflessly to save his father, the Blue Fairy brings him back to life as a real human boy, and that weird little family lives happily ever after. I'll be honest, Pinocchio always freaked me out as a kid. I hated Stromboli and the part where the kids turn into donkeys. Also, it's from 1940. I'm not the only one who finds something creepy about old movies, right? Anyways.
I would say back then they had a very sinister mind. Like back then they had a real crazy ass mindset of children books. And they had this shit in the 1940s, in the 1900s, in the 1800s. These books that we get, well, not even the books, but the cartoons or these movies that we get from Disney. A lot of these be from the 1800s and the early 1900s. And I just never got what was their obsession when it came down to the children. Hey, Lady Sal. Hey, Stacy. Pinocchio, I'm going to fuck up your childhood with Pinocchio because out of all of the Disneys, I think Pinocchio was the best one for them, considering he was a wooden boy and then he became, a child and everybody live happily ever after. Now, what got me as a child with Pinocchio is when his friend turned into that donkey and the other kid, because you notice on the Pleasure Island, shit. For one, I'm going to let him tell it first. And then I'm going to give you the other version. I'm going to do you like I did with... Girl, Pinocchio really going to fuck you up. Okay? It's going to fuck you up. That's all I'm going to say.
If you thought that was crazy, remember that Disney has always toned down the harsher elements of these stories, including the character of Pinocchio himself. Carlo wrote The Adventures of Pinocchio to serve as a warning to children that always choosing to do what's easy and expedient and enjoyable will eventually get you into trouble, and that you're going to have to work hard and suffer to reach your full potential. Because of that, we see Pinocchio make quite a few stupid decisions starting on the day he was first carved. The story starts with a wood craftsman named Antonio finding a block of pine wood that he's going to turn into a leg for his table. Only as soon as he starts carving into it, the wood screams. Antonio is freaked out by the apparently magic wood and gives it to his poor neighbor Geppetto, who plans on starting a career as a puppeteer. He decides to use the wood to make his first puppet, Pinocchio, but right out of the gate, his behavior is downright rude, and a few other choice words I try not to use on the show. As soon as his nose is carved, it starts to grow longer the more he acts like a butthole to Geppetto. Right after his feet are carved, he kicks Geppetto in the shin, and immediately after learning how to walk, he runs out of the house and into town. When he gets into town, he runs into a police officer who assumes he's been mistreated by his father, because why else would he be running from him, and he arrests Geppetto. The most ridiculous part is Pinocchio doesn't even care. He brushes the incident off and goes back to his house, where he meets the character who inspired Jiminy Cricket, Rickety Cricket. Nah, he just meant a regular talking cricket. Unlike Jiminy Cricket, who set up camp in Geppetto's house the night Pinocchio was made, Talking Cricket says he's lived in the house for a century, and he warns Pinocchio that if he continues to misbehave, he'll have to suffer repercussions. Pinocchio didn't really feel like listening to the whole spiel though, so he decided to throw a hammer at the cricket, killing him. To be fair, it was an accident. He just wanted to throw the hammer near him. But still, sad. A century of life ruined by one rude puppet. Pinocchio fixes himself a meal and falls asleep with his feet on the stove, which results in them burning off. When Geppetto is released that night, he agrees to make Pinocchio some new feet if he goes to school the next day. He sells his only jacket for enough money to buy Pinocchio a textbook, and the next morning, Pinocchio takes it with him on his way to school. Only just like in the movie, he's distracted by a puppet show and decides to sell his textbook for a ticket. So disrespectful. Apparently, the puppets in the show were carved from the same block of wood as Pinocchio because they recognize him from the crowd and call out to him during the show. This effectively ruins the show for the rest of the crowd, and the terrifying puppet master Mangiafuoco holds Pinocchio personally responsible. He decides he's going to use the puppet as firewood to cook his meal later that night. The puppet master is a pretty interesting character. Listen to the way he's described in the book. A large man so ugly he evoked fear by simply being looked at. He had a beard as black as a smudge of ink and so long that it fell from his chin down to the ground, enough so that when he walked, he stepped on it. His mouth was as wide as an oven. His eyes were like two red-tinted lanterns with the light turned on at the back. And in his hand, he sported a large whip made of snakes and foxtails knitted together. This is the book's rendition of what he looks like, and this is mine. I think they're equally hideous. Now, while Mangiafuoco is a terrifying human being, he's surprisingly compassionate. When Pinocchio breaks down in sadness, telling him about his poor father Geppetto waiting for him at home, the puppet master feels sympathy, and he gives Pinocchio 5 gold coins to give to his father and sets him free. It'd be nice to hear that Pinocchio went home after all this, apologized to Geppetto, and gave him the gold coins to buy them a nice dinner and a new coat. Unfortunately, that would have gone against the entire purpose of this book, which I'll say again, was to show children what happens when you pursue what's expedient and enjoyable over what's difficult and truly rewarding. It's pretty much the opposite of the legend of Hercules, which we talked about a few weeks ago. He deliberately chose a severe and glorious life over a pleasant and easy life because he's the man. It's crazy that these stories were written over 10,000 years apart and have such a similar message. I mean, think about it. The legend of Hercules was one of the most popular stories throughout the entirety of ancient Rome and Greece's existence. This might blow your mind, but the story of Pinocchio is the second most translated book ever published, right behind the Bible, and it's one of the best-selling books of all time. I think there's a reason we humans gravitate towards stories with this kind of message. I think somewhere in our subconscious ancient brain, we know this message to be a fundamental truth. Anyway, let's get back on track. On the way home, Pinocchio comes across a fox that's pretending to have a busted leg and a cat claiming to be deaf. Note that in the movie, the cat isn't deaf, but instead just doesn't talk. I like finding little changes like that. They tell Pinocchio that if he plants his 5 gold coins in a field outside the city of Catchfools, they'll sprout into gold coin trees. And see that bird in the upper left corner? He tries to warn Pinocchio that he's about to get played for a fool, but the cat eats him. Not a super important detail, but one I wanted you to know. Some of you might be wondering, how is Pinocchio eating up all this baloney? Is he that big of an Oscar Mayer fan? But you've got to remember, he's got the innocence of a child and a brain that's made of wood. So he wasn't born with the best baloney detector. I wish I had a literal baloney detector. I love baloney, and I hate looking for it at the store, because I always get lost. They offer to walk him to the city, and they con him into using one of his gold coins to pay for their expensive dinner at a nearby inn. They basically do that thing where when you're on a date, you have someone call you with a fake emergency just in case it's going terribly or the person's profile pictures were a little too flattering. Pinocchio falls asleep at the inn, and they duck out early, leaving behind a note saying there was an emergency and to meet them at the Field of Miracles the next morning. They go a ways ahead on the path and disguise themselves as bandits to try and rob Pinocchio of his last 4 coins when he walks by. They almost have him too, until Pinocchio bites off the cat's hand and makes a break for it for a nearby house where the fairy with turquoise hair lived. As you can probably guess, the fairy with the turquoise hair is what inspired the blue fairy in the movie. Pinocchio is banging on the door, begging for help, but the fairy tells him that all of the house's inhabitants are dead, including herself, and she's waiting on her coffin. I don't know. I can't explain that one. Without her help, Pinocchio was caught by the bandits, who tie his hands behind his back and proceed to hang him from a tree. Only this isn't the quick style hanging that breaks your neck when you fall. They strung him up and lifted him by his neck off the ground, which means he was forced to suffocate while the fox and cat watched. Until they got bored of watching, I guess. Apparently it takes a while for a magic puppet to suffocate, and the two just walked away when they got bored. Which means that Pinocchio spent his last few moments alone, reflecting on the bad decisions he made and the tomfoolery that led to his death. Originally, this is where the story ended. It was meant to show young people what'll happen if you refuse responsibility and just do whatever's immediately gratifying instead, essentially sacrificing the great person that you could be for the underdeveloped mess that you currently are. But in 1833, readers weren't happy with this ending. They loved the rest of the book, but they wanted Pinocchio to have a full story arc where he redeems himself and becomes a good person, and I think that's reasonable. How much would any of us have liked the Emperor's New Groove if he died in the jungle with the Panthers and the movie was just over? So when the author's publisher reached out to him to ask about a possible expansion to the Adventures of Pinocchio, Carlo was like, sure, I'll just write another 15 chapters. And here we are, almost 200 years later, still talking about him. Now remember, while the fox and cat did string up Pinocchio in the tree, they left him alone after a while because they got bored watching him suffocate. And also, he didn't know it was the fox and cat because they were in disguise. So when he runs into them later and acts all buddy-buddy, that's why. He didn't know it was them. It ends up being the fairy with turquoise hair that saves Pinocchio's life, even though she just turned him away moments before. She looked out her window and saw him hanging lifelessly from a tree, so she sent a hawk to help him down and a stagecoach to bring him back to the house. She calls in 3 famous doctors to gauge the puppet's condition. The first 2, an owl and crow, couldn't give a definite answer, probably because they weren't real doctors. I bet you they were like chiropractors or something. The third doctor was actually the ghost of the talking cricket that Pinocchio killed in the first few chapters. He said Pinocchio would be all right, but he's irresponsible and a terrible son. That's gotta sting, right? Even if your heart's made of wood. The fairy tries to give Pinocchio some medicine to speed along the healing process, but he refuses until 4 rabbit undertakers come to the house with a coffin to take his body away. This gets his attention. He drinks the medicine and pretty much instantly feels better, but now it's time to explain to the fairy how he got himself in such a predicament. He tells her everything that happened with the cat and fox leading up to the incident, but when she wants to know what happened to his gold coins, he starts to lie. This chapter is what served as inspiration for the nose-growing scene in the movie. According to the fairy, there's 2 types of lies, one that makes your legs grow shorter and another that makes your nose longer. Of course, Pinocchio's lies are the nose-growing kind, and soon enough, he can't turn his head in either direction without knocking something over. At first, the fairy thinks it's kind of funny, because she's just trying to teach him a lesson. But he starts to get really upset, and after a few hours of listening to him cry, she summons 1,000 woodpeckers to peck his nose back to its normal size. The fairy seems to truly care about Pinocchio, so she makes him an offer. He and Geppetto can move in with her, and she'll help raise him as if he was her little brother. It turns out that Geppetto is already on his way over, and Pinocchio is super excited to see him and apologize for being such a crappy son. It looks like the puppet's finally trying to make some changes, but as Mike Tyson once said, change comes in time, so his morals are still a work in progress. He leaves the house to search for his father, and therefore hopefully see him a little sooner, but on his way, he runs into the fox and cat. The cat is still missing his paw from when Pinocchio bit it off in self-defense, but for some reason, the puppet can't put 2 and 2 together. It takes a lot of convincing, but the cat and fox once again persuade Pinocchio to come with them to the Field of Miracles and bury his gold coins, which they claim will then sprout gold coin trees. After the coins are buried, the group splits up, but when Pinocchio returns to the field 20 minutes later, he finds that he's been scammed and his coins have been stolen. He runs to the courthouse in the nearby city of Catchfools, which is populated by people who sacrifice their future well-being for immediate satisfaction. There's hairless dogs, featherless chickens, butterflies without wings. It's a rough sight. Carlo added a symbolic detail when describing the city, saying that every once in a while a beautiful stagecoach would pass through that was driven by either a fox, a hawk, or a vulture. These animals are all predators and scavengers and likely played a role in the downfall of the rest of the city's residents, just like the rich scumbags who populate our planet. When Pinocchio gets to the courthouse, he explains everything that happened with the fox and cat to a gorilla judge who has sympathy for the puppet, but even still chose to punish him for the crime of foolishness. After being in jail for 4 months, Pinocchio starts on his way back to the fairy's house, which he soon discovers is no longer there and was replaced by a gravestone. Pinocchio starts crying, and a nearby pigeon overhears this and offers to take him to the beach where Geppetto is currently building a raft to go look for him. When he's dropped off, he rushes to the coast and sees Geppetto far out in the distance. He tries to swim out to him, but the current keeps pushing him back, and then he sees a giant wave come crashing down on Geppetto's raft. He tries swimming out and saving Geppetto once again, but the old man's body is gone, so he ends up swimming to the nearby island of Busy. Everyone on this island spends their entire day working and doing chores, and it takes some time for Pinocchio to grasp this concept of working hard and earning something. He offers to help a woman bring her water jugs to her house in exchange for a drink, and soon he realizes that she's the fairy with turquoise hair, just somehow older. She makes a deal with Pinocchio that he can live with her and she'll act as his mother if he goes to school. In place where no one has to work and you can have fun all day doing whatever you want. Sounds too good to be true because it is. He invites Pinocchio to come along with him, and at first preparations were complete and Pinocchio was sold to a circus. Initially, he was expected to be a trick performing donkey, but after being trained and abused for 3 months, he sprained pulling the wagon were all wearing shoes, similar to the ones that Pinocchio was wearing. Not to mention, one of the donkeys literally said, "Don't come with us, it's a really bad idea. Look at me, I'm a talking donkey with shoes on. Do you think that's a little off?" Pinocchio and Candlewick spent 5 months in Toyland living the dream life they always wanted. But one morning, Pinocchio wakes up to discover he's grown a set of donkey ears and so has Candlewick. Just like in the movie, the two learn the hard way that boys who don't study and try to grow up eventually turn into donkeys. And by the end of that day, their transformations were complete and Pinocchio was sold to a circus. Initially, he was expected to be a trick-performing donkey, but after being trained and abused for 3 months, he sprained his ankle and was sold once again, this time to a man who planned on killing him and using his hide to make a drum. Apparently, the man wasn't totally heartless because he felt bad looking into the donkey's eyes as he killed him. So get this. He ties Pinocchio's legs together and then ties a rope around his neck and throws him into the ocean. Once again, though, Pinocchio's fairy was looking out for him and she sent a school of 1,000 fish to eat the donkey parts off of him. So when the man fished him out, he was expecting a dead donkey but got a living puppet instead. He's pretty angry about the fact that he wasted money on a pretend donkey, but Pinocchio jumps back into the ocean before he can be turned into firewood. He swims as far away from land as he can, only to come across the terrible dogfish, the book's version of the whale monstro. He tries swimming back to land, but the dogfish catches up to him and eats him right up. Pinocchio decides to explore the belly of the beast, and who does he run into but Geppetto? The old man's been living in the dogfish's stomach for 2 full years, surviving off supplies from a larger ship the monster also swallowed. Unlike the movie where Pinocchio and Geppetto start a fire to make Monstro sneeze, they simply climb out of his stomach and ride to land on the back of a tuna. That sounds like a lot of fun, right? I wish I had a better relationship with the tuna community so I could give it a try. But the story isn't over yet. This is when Pinocchio really takes on the full responsibility of not just being a real boy, but a real adult. When looking for shelter, they actually run into the fox and cat from earlier in the story, only now they look more like the residents of Catchfools. The cat's really gone blind after pretending to be for who knows how long, and the fox is hairless, has no tail, and lost function in one of his legs. They beg Pinocchio for help, but he tells them they got what they deserve and bids the false friends goodbye. He and his father stumble upon a cottage where they're welcomed inside, only to find the ghost of the talking cricket. He's still pretty bitter about Pinocchio killing him when they first met, but he lets them both move into his house because really, what's a cricket need a full house for? Right away, Pinocchio gets himself a job working for a farmer, the same farmer actually who bought Candlewick after he turned into a donkey. Unfortunately, Candlewick doesn't have a happy ending, and Pinocchio watches him die from being worked too hard and not given enough water. Even still, he works for the farmer in exchange for a glass of milk that he gives Geppetto every day. The old man's still recovering after living in the dogfish for so long. While all this is happening, Pinocchio really kicks it into high gear.
I told you, girl, with Pinocchio, I didn't even get this further into it neither. Or where Pinocchio goes to the same farmer who killed the boy that was supposed to have been his friend. Like, and my thing is, why did he watch him though? Why did he watch him die instead of helping him? Or was it too late? Like, but even with him dying and him watching it, he still did business with this man. I mean, even though the man does not know, and that's the thing, like, there's no way these owners that were buying the donkeys and doing the things that they were doing to them were good men. They were shitty ass men. But in the metaphor of it, it's something more deeper and disgusting with that situation. But I'm going to let him finish it out.
He starts making baskets out of reeds and selling them and uses the money to buy food, water, and books, which he uses to teach himself to read and write. After months of saving, Pinocchio has enough money to buy himself a new suit, but on his way into town, he runs into a talking snail that he met on the island of Busy. The snail tells him that the fairy is dying and can't afford food or medicine, so without a second thought, Pinocchio hands over the 40 pennies he was going to use to buy his suit and returns home. That night, Pinocchio has a dream where the fairy visits him and gives him a kiss, and when he wakes up, he learns he's finally become a real boy. And to top it off, not only did the fairy give him a new suit and shoes, but also 40 gold coins in place of his 40 pennies. The story ends with Pinocchio and his father embracing and staring at his puppet body now sitting to the side. Pinocchio says happily how ridiculous I was as a marionette, and how happy I am now that I've become a real boy. And with that comes the end of the story. I hope you guys enjoyed this uncut version. The Pinocchio origin episodes are some of my favorites that I've done so far, but it's always kind of bothered me that there wasn't a complete version for the people who just want to sit back and listen to it all unfold at once. So I thought this would be a fun project to edit together while I'm out of town this week and can't work on my usual stuff. If you like this episode, make sure to smash that like button with all your heart.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. A long time ago, child. You have nothing to say? Well, Lady Nika, I had to do it to you. Y'all know I had to fuck it up for you. But, when you going down the rabbit hole, you begin to see things for what it is and catch on to the metaphors of what they put in. I mean, a lot of y'all know who Betty Boop is, right? And a lot of y'all know her story is just as tragic as Marilyn Monroe. Even though these women went through a lot of abuse, because Marilyn Monroe went through a lot of abuse, like listening to her story, and she's still being praised to this day. But when you listen to her story, you would think that she was the most happiest woman on earth, when she felt like she was the most miserable woman on earth. I, a lot of abuse went on and just passed around. And with Betty Boop, shit, she was a whole damn. I'm gonna pull up Shirley Temple. Hold on.
cheeks, bouncing blonde curls, and innocent face of one of the most famous movie stars of the early 1900s lies the dark truth of manipulation, exploitation, and a childhood stolen away.
Our little girl.
What is up, Iwu crew? Now remembered as the beloved old-timey child actress, Shirley Temple is a symbol of angelic childhood innocence. But the bright and charming tales she portrayed on screen are far from the real truth of her life. Today we are diving behind the red curtain to uncover the horror and dark reality of the life of Shirley Temple. Let's get into it. Shirley Temple was born in 1928 in Santa Monica, California, to a father who was a banker and a mother who stayed at home to take care of the 3 children. Temple was born into the difficult years of the Great Depression, and her family barely avoided poverty. Almost as soon as she was born, and certainly as soon as she could walk, the Temple family put all of their hope into their youngest daughter. Though only a toddler, they believed she had immense talent, and so, despite the vast and indiscriminate suffering during the Depression, they used what little extra money they had to enroll her in dance classes. Her mother had wanted to be a dancer herself, and when her own attempts came to nothing, she forced her 2-year-old daughter onto the stage. Temple soon landed a contract with Educational Pictures, rocketing her into fame, and with it came fortune. Temple's father became her talent agent and financial advisor, and successfully guided her through the ruin of the 1930s. As everyone around them lost most of their money and plummeted into destitution, the Temples became rich. Despite her later reputation,
You know, this is what's crazy to me though when she told this story, and this, like he just said, in the 1920s when this was in the Great Depression, basically everybody broke but your government. And her and her family and those that were in her, it's amazing to me that hardworking people were starving while Hollywood was being Hollywood and your government was being your government. It's amazing how and they allowed it too. I say they allowed it because y'all decided to be poor because your government decided to go to war, in my opinion, and it made y'all become broke. And that's what started the Great Depression, where plenty of Americans, millions of Americans, began to become homeless and starving. But yet there seems to always be a problem when that happens. How come the rich is still thriving, but the rest of society is over there going broke in the 1920s? How the hell is everybody? Because they say everybody. It wasn't no everybody. The rich was still being rich. Only the poor was the one suffering. And from what I see in the situation, people that make sure they able to be rich, and still to this day, because this happened in 1920, girl, we in 2024, and it's still kind of like that to this day. It don't make no sense. All this is able to go on while people is over there starving and trying to figure out how to feed their families. And I also want to say that is also how Hollywood was able to get themselves out there during that time. Sometimes stuff comes off as a plan, right? And it may not seem like it was a plan, but it does comes off as a plan, because With the Great Depression happening in the 1920s, Hollywood was able to flourish. Many people, families had to sit down and have their kids and themselves watch TV too, because keep in mind, a lot of people was not working either because the jobs wasn't given. There was no food. They act like the food supply was cut. There was no food for people to be able to feed because, the government didn't have no money at that time, but they had money to, for them to go to war at that time. Amazing that they had money just magically appear for them to be able to go to war and give trillions of dollars in war. It was amazing that could happen while y'all over there starving to death. And Hollywood able to sneak in and have people be okay with shit like this because they know that people were more stressed out and worried about what was going on in their real life, and looking at the TV, it's easy to be brainwashed to what you are seeing. And that's exactly what they did. It's just weird and disturbing on how people did not catch and pick up on this shit. Like today is so much easier because all of this technology, and bitch, I'm glad in this day and age I can say when it comes down to bullshit like that, y'all can call it out quickly, we can call it out quickly, we can get on it. But back then, child.
Exploitation as America's sweetheart, Shirley Temple's earlier roles on the movie screen were often wildly inappropriate and cringeworthy. Desperate to have their daughter make it big, her parents allowed her to play any role she was given, no matter how the scripts may have exploited their young daughter.
This rare phenomenon happens every 200 years. Incredible. Do you hear this majestic?
Her first speaking role came at age 3 in a film called War Babies. The film's premise involved an entire cast made up of children.
It's going to take me a minute to get through this on here because, when I listen, I should have do the, I thought this would have been the one where she's talking herself and you get to hear her tell the story herself, but I don't know. I think they probably took it down. I'm not sure. But she did it. She told the story herself before she died. She told the story. I guess at that point she said she didn't give a fuck. Because she already was up there and stuff. I hated War Babies. When she talked about War Babies, and I went and I did, and we gonna go down the rabbit hole on them War Babies, okay? But he finna give you a skip it over here too, but we gonna go over that to the real thing too, because we going down the rabbit hole, and what you getting presented, we gonna go and dig up what you getting presented. So the key word here is the War Babies. So we gonna look that up, because girl, I just don't see how people even back then when they was going through allow some shit like this to happen. Girl, let me shut up.
Playing the roles of adult soldiers, except for Temple, who was cast as an exotic dancer, though she was just a toddler. In this film, Temple receives her very first kiss, and as creepy as that may sound to us, her father had approved the script. Following this movie, her castings continued to place her in roles more appropriately suited for adults, as it was a popular theme at this time in history to have very young children make a series of spoofs based on popular films. As entertaining as these films may have been for the audience at the time, they often placed children in uncomfortable situations far beyond their years. One of the spoof films was called Baby Burlesques, where many of the children were featured half-dressed, and Temple herself wore a large mock diaper held up with only a safety pin. Shockingly, her role in the film was as a character named Charmaine, who was a sex worker. Temple would deliver lines such as, "I'm expensive," before proceeding to exchange kisses for lollipops. The suggestive roles Temple played on screen ended up resulting in one of her films being banned in Denmark, Italy, and Switzerland for unspecified corruption. In Curly Top, Temple played Cupid and was shown completely naked except for gold paint, which some countries believed was a bad example for the children viewing the movie, resulting in its banning. Her parents, though, had no objections to any of these movie characters. And in fact, in an attempt to make her more marketable for these cute roles in Hollywood, her mother would frequently lie about her daughter's age. It is not only Temple's life on screen that was tumultuous and dark, but behind the camera as well. Though the themes of her movies were exploitative and often creepy, the real-life treatment of Temple and the other child actors on set was possibly even worse. During the filming of Baby Burlesques, Temple underwent surgery on her eardrum to lancet, and rather than being given a break to heal, she was forced to work the next day. On the same set, she was also forced to dance on a foot that she had badly injured. As they were very young children, the 24 kids on the set of the spoof movies often misbehaved, but rather than being understanding of their age, the directors would punish them. The first round of punishment would be to force the young children to stand in a cold puddle until they calmed down, or literally cooled down. If this didn't work, they would be placed in the second punishment, which was a black punishment box brought on the sets. The box was a windowless sound booth containing a block of ice where the children would have to sit. Temple herself spent frequent time in the punishment box. A few of these times.
Hold on, y'all. Let me find her with her talking, because I want her to explain it. It's better to hear out of her mouth. I think I found it. Okay. Hold on, girl. Let's see. I think I found it.
Welcome to Larry King Live. Tonight, she sang and danced her way into the hearts of millions. The sparkle of Shirley Temple Black. And Christina Crawford brought down a legend with Mommy Dearest. Now she reveals how she survived all the skeletons in the family closet. Now, here's Larry King.
Good evening. Start of another night, another week of Larry King Live. Later in the hour, Christina Crawford. Tomorrow night, Jack Anderson. Thursday night, we'll devote the complete hour with Governor Mario Cuomo, and we'll do that from our studios in New York. Christopher Reeve will be here Friday. She was the littlest rebel, Curly Top, and Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. She was all smiles, dimples, and dancing feet. Shirley Temple was the most adored of all child stars who brought the golden age of Hollywood to a Depression-era America. Later, she put the good ship Lollipop into dry dock and became United States ambassador to Ghana. She also served as posts in the UN. In the Ford White House was chief of protocol, and she's the author of Child Star. an autobiography. There you see the book. I hope you see it. I don't see it on my screen, but I hope you see it on yours. There it is. The candid recollection of her childhood and early marriage. It is published by McGraw-Hill. One would think that there's going to be a book two if this is only the recollection of early childhood and early marriage.
You are right. I'm starting the outline for book two.
Which
this
is
will be
government
about,
years?
Yeah, government years, the last 19 years. I have 3 19-year segments. The first 19 years, I was in the movies. The second 19 years, I was rearing my family. And the third 19 years, I've had in government service. Now, if the viewers say she's a few years short, I'm short anyway.
What?
But the other 3 years, I was learning my craft. Those were the first 3 years of my life.
What took so long to write this? Why didn't this book get written sooner?
Boy, she's hot. Yeah. I see Sergeant Fletcher. He said he took her away from gang. Oh, yeah? Well, you tell that boy. The man ain't mad they can take my gal. Ain't that right, baby? Absolutely no copy time. Hey, Bartender! What is that, baby? No. Gee, what you think I expensive? Here's the last one. Now I'm broke.
And the black little boy was done the wrong. He got the worst punishment out of all of them, too, y'all. Shirley said they did him so wrong during this time when they had to do the war babies. Child, he went through so much abuse. So much.
You gotta try a super claw.
So I'll give a hoot what you do, say girl, I know you a little too tight.
I'm afraid. Hey, Robinski, throw that mess down the
Miss Jean, what am I cutting? I don't mean to lie, but it's Miss Jean said, piece of cut. What am I cutting? Miss Jean, what am I cutting? This is what they had them doing. While the world was starving, these kids was doing this. And nothing happened because people were too busy worried about their own selves. Too busy trying to feed their own kids. Trying to find a piece of job that they really didn't care that their kids was watching shit like this. Like, hey, Pinky, you gotta see it. It's disgusting, but you have to see what they did. I never understood the purpose of them drinking the milk out of the damn glove. That's some sick ass shit. Her being a stripper is some sick ass shit, and then prostituting herself around for lollipops, which is exchange for money, it's some sick ass shit they had them doing. She was 3 years old. Majority of them was 3 to 4 to 5 and probably 6 years old. They were so young, and they had them. And the parents are the most horrible motherfuckers you could come across, because they did not give a fuck about their kids. And Shirley did let it be known that her mama didn't care. She just like how when she told her mama that the producer for Dorothy, and that's how we even know the story of Dorothy. We know the story of Dorothy, and we know how Dorothy, the character girl, we know how she got that role.
Good boy, he sure knows how to get the game. You set him out. I'll be seeing you later, Mansfield. Bye. 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 Hello, beautiful. Hello, handsome. Come on, boys. Who bought a drink? I'm quiet, Clay. I'm going quiet. Now I guess it's just me and my baby, huh? Hey, where did you get that joy, baby stuff? It's my gal. Says you. You says me. And we'll settle this right now. Come on, baby. Choose between us. Captain Guy? Yeah, what else? Why from the way to move up front? Why? Okay. Listen, baby, I gotta go now. You be good until I get back. Stay away from that clown, Project Force. He's on smacking our ground. May we, Moshe Cuppy, come? Okay, baby. Where's you been? Let him sing goodbye to my baby. Oh, yeah, your baby. Says you. Yeah, says me. Forward march. Hey, yeah, wait for me. wish Mother was here.
This is the Candyland Hour for all good children. The orchestra will play our theme song.
You know that song, don't you?
Sure I do.
Well, then sing it. Come on. Come on, Charlie, sing it.
I've thrown away my toys, even my drum and trains. I want to make some noise with real life aeroplanes. Someday I'm going to fly. I'll be a pilot too, and when I do, how would you like to be my crew? On the good ship, Lollipop, it's a sweet trip to a candy shop where bonbons play on the sunny beach of Peppermint Bay. Lemonade stands everywhere, Cracker Jack bands fill the air, and there you are, happy landing on a chocolate bar. See the sugar bowl, do the Tootsie Roll with the big bad devil's food cake. If you eat too much, oh, you'll awake with a tummy ache on the good ship. Lollipop, it's a night trip. Into bed you hop and dream away on the good ship, Lollipop. On the good ship, Lollipop, it's a sweet trip to a candy shop where bonbons play on the sunny beach of Peppermint Bay. Lemonade stands everywhere, Cracker Jack bands fill the air, and there you are, happy landing on a chocolate bar. See the sugar bowl, do the Tootsie Roll with the big fat devil's food cake. If you eat too much, oh, you'll awake with a tummy ache on the good ship. Lollipop, it's a night trip. Into bed you hop and dream away on the good ship, Lollipop.
You'll awake with a tummy ache
on the good ship, Lollipop.
It's a night trip. Into bed you hop and dream away on the good ship, Lollipop.
Girl, when I tell you that's some sick ass shit, it's beyond some sick shit. Like, she was surrounded. That's why she said mother was there. Mother didn't give a damn. All mother cared about was them giving her them $1,000 a week, because $1,000 a week was like $10,000 back in those days of today's time. And she didn't care that whatever they did to her, just like all those other child stars like her in those times, they did not care what happened to their kids on Hollywood set. They left them in the hands of predators. Those men were predators. Okay, that was some sick shit, and till this day, people still sing that Lollipop song when it's literally a song really for a pedophile. Like, it's literally for pedophiles. Okay, she gets sick at the lollipop, and then they passing her around. She going from one man to the other on this, and then they got her in this bus. Like, it don't make no sense, because she not in the store, she not at a lollipop shop, she literally in the bus full of fucking men, and they're all passing her around till she get back up to her father, and his sick ass is going along with the shit too. Like, that's disturbing as hell. And then y'all putting the white powder on her nose, on her lips. Come on now. So we're going to act like we don't know what that is? To experience that type of... And it ain't no telling what they all did to her after the set, all those men. Because look what they was able to do on film. So imagine the things that they did to her, which she explained that it was a lot of abuse she went through from 3 years old until she was no longer desirable to the men that didn't no longer see her as a little girl anymore, from her words. When they didn't view her as being a little girl anymore, and that's pretty much when they get by 15, 16, they don't even find them interesting like that, really. From what she says, which is some sick ass shit that those producers was doing back then in Hollywood, and everybody that was along with it, and they just sat around and did it. But it's no different from what goes on in Hollywood now and what goes on at Disney, because a lot of people call Orlando Brown crazy, and they wonder why Shia LaBeouf went crazy and shit, because it's a lot of stuff that had happened to them when they was kids. Just like some stuff that happened to Ariana Grande, but she is part of the plant. She's there for a reason, because even though she went through all of that happened on the Disney set, from the little bit that y'all see from that Dan dude, she can't say anything. She has to be quiet on that, because that industry gave her what she gave her gave us Ariana Grande. Okay, that's what it is. It gave us her. She knows her career got built off of it. So she's not gonna go against it. I mean, same with Miley Cyrus, which is why she was right acting like a hoe, wanting to do all type of drugs and party and do all type of sick shit too. You know, they went through a lot of stuff, a lot of abuse where a lot of parents didn't care. Yes. So, you know, it's still going on to this day, but they was able to do it because, I mean, television's gonna always give you those visions, and it's the most powerful tool that they have. Mm. Yeah, Miss G. As you can see, it didn't start in the 1900s or the 2000 or the 90s. It's been going on for a very long time. And the further you go back, the more disturbing it becomes of all type of crime that was committed and done to people. Girl, it's just some sick shit. It is some sick shit when you have to deal with that type of stuff. Where people playing games. This is why I tell y'all to pay attention. I definitely make sure my eyes is not brainwashed. I make sure that I watches these shows like Disney, Nickelodeon, but my kids don't even watch Disney and Nickelodeon. Girl, they been start watching that shit. Only thing they pay attention to is Roblox. So my only worry I gotta worry about is Roblox for them, because that seems to be the only thing that they occupy. Now they play with their toys and stuff still, so that they got in there. So I'm good with that. They ain't too much on TV. They still love to be outside and do activities and stuff. So I'm doing good as much as I can, because it's hard when society definitely be trying to suck your kids into the bullshit that be going on. Because TikTok is girl. TikTok got everybody just where they at. That's all I'm gonna say. When it comes to TikTok, girl, not just the parents is addictive to it. The children was first, and then the parents took over from it being for kids. And it's a lot of dumb shit that happened on TikTok where people were drinking bleach, Tide Pods, doing challenges, or a challenge where you go and you know off yourself, or and then people be doing it, and it's just crazy how people be doing stuff like that. Like, damn, that person got that much influence of you to where you will do that. Like, it's easy to manipulate these minds of these kids where they go to doing stuff, because it ain't adults that went and did it. These are kids that end up doing it due to these fucking trends that they had where people doing dumb shit like this, girl. She not. Which dog? All right, well, I'll try the link and see if somebody want to come up. Because, I'm finna end it right there. Tomorrow, because I was trying to figure out what I was going to bring to y'all tomorrow. But I don't know who that was. I think it was Bush, baby. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about what she said. So I'm going to be going down the rabbit hole over there on that. And we're going to be going down it together. But which dog that was playing, messing with the kids' minds, RNY? Next time, Jailbird, I'm going to give y'all a disclaimer, okay? I'm going to make sure y'all be smoked or you be drinking when you got to listen to this shit. That's you talking about that scary, what was her name? Sally? Yeah, that was giving kids nightmares and stuff, child. My kids is not scared of that shit. Girl, my soundbites is not scared of that shit at all when it came out, child. They called it ugly, and that was about it. When it popped up, they called the shit ugly and then moved on. Annabelle, that's what her name was, Annabelle. Yeah, that Annabelle doll that was fucking with the kids' minds. Good thing she wasn't able to fuck with minds. Okay. Oh no, she's talking about Momo. She's talking about Momo. Well, Momo gives us Annabelle too, because only difference is, well, there really isn't no difference, because when you look at all the Annabelle movies, horror movies, wasn't she manipulating the kids' minds and having them doing stuff that she needed? Did she eventually end up taking over their soul by possessing them, because she made them go through rituals where the kids did everything that they needed her to do? Each soul that she became attached to, each child that she came, whether it was a boy or girl, she came attached to them, and they did everything that she wanted and spent all their time with Annabelle. I don't know what time, Diamond. I don't know what time. The wizard is telling the truth about a certain organization. Oh. Yes, I remember that PDP when Lovely Love did that. I think she thought it was okay. I really don't think she thought it was anything. But she did it around the time when that shit was popping up, and then all of the internet had deleted because she was popping up YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Girl popping up in the games too with the roadblocks and stuff. And that Momo character was popping up every fucking where. And I almost had somebody child, you know. But y'all gotta be careful with these spirits and stuff. But Momo reminds me of Annabelle too. Because you know, Annabelle always possesses the kids and stuff and end up taking over their souls and stuff. And then she end up playing tricks on the parents and driving them crazy. Then she end up killing them so that she can take over the kids' souls and stuff. Girl, and Momo ain't no damn different. They have Wizard that is the leader. Well, you know, when it came down to the Wizard of Oz, I can never look at that movie again the same. I know that. I could never look at the Wizard of Oz ever again the same, knowing what Shirley Temple told us about what happened to her and how her mama, her parents did her wrong too. And then when I went down the rabbit hole of the girl, her story is tragic too because she pretty much was ran through. And she got taken advantage of. Even her being 15 and 16, 17, even in her early 20s, she still got taken advantage of because of her beauty. Girl. It just don't be making no sense, okay?